Hello, I'm Robin, and welcome to the June edition of Molten Music Monthly. Well, the bloated juggernaut that is Glastonbury has swiftly passed by, proving once again that there is hope for half-dead old has-beens like myself. Meanwhile, Billy No Mates exposed the pure fakery of our performances, and Ableton Live crashed live on stage. So perhaps it's time to get back to looking at all the cool music technology that came out this month. So coming up we have Behringer gets spicy and shifty, Czochralski splits into cells, Amp orbits songs of the stars, D16 gets more lush, Korg gets all stretchy, Squarp isn't done with the Hermod, Sonicware gets experimental, OAM takes on time, Erica Synths fattens up a Bullfrog, Magerit does multifunction in a round, Dawsome Love, Nervous Squirrel challenges us to a game of life, Faded Instruments has some 3U to play with, Expert Sleepers swings on a trapezoid, Roland fakes a classic, Western Audio harmonises, Olivella oscillates under gravity, the insane Beat Machine teleports in from 2017, and BeepBoop does some head scratching with tape. But first it's the news that Moog have been bought out by InMusic. That's exciting. Is it? Not sure. No one can be quite sure exactly how exciting it is. It could be exciting. It could be revolutionary. It could mean that the next time you pick up your Model D, you'll be going down to Curry's. Maybe. We just don't know at this point. But what this means for us as a community of synthesizers builders is that it completely blows apart all of those preconceptions and all of those notions, all of that idealization, all of that warm fuzzy feelings that we have around this awesome company of Moog kind of gets obliterated. It dissipates. There's no way around it really, because how we feel generally, I talk about, when I say we, I mean, because you have to feel what I feel, right? And at least from my opinion, Moog has this aura about it. It has this field around it of electronics, of ancient, somehow hand-built tools of craftsmanship and workmanship, and all of this love and this legend and these electrons that are poured into it that just somehow are that little bit more special than anybody else's electrons. And because of that, we give them an awful lot of leeway. We give them the ability to charge what the heck they like for their beautiful bits of gear, because they're special. They are extraordinary. There's something about that name, that legacy, that man, that invention, the way that these synthesizers have enabled our creativity, how we've loved that sound, how it's fed into so much of our history and the music that we love, all of these things. And so around this company is this amazing blanket of goodwill, if you like, where they can really do nothing wrong. It doesn't matter how sexist their employment policies are, or how terribly they pay their workers. It doesn't matter, because it's flipping Moog, and we love it. So when they end up being bought out by a company that runs a load of other companies, all of whom knock out kind of plasticky but successful products, it undermines all of that aura. It undermines all of that idea, and it just makes it feel different. Now, it may not be different at all. They may carry on making things in exactly the same way that they always have. It may maintain, and in fact it may be able to push Moog out to wider markets, making it more generally available to people, putting them on demo in more places, and giving people more access. It may even bring down prices without damaging the quality. It could do all of these things. But there's this slight sinking feeling that that's not what's going to happen. And in all reality, it feels I don't know. It may be that the golden age, the second golden age, or whatever it is of synthesizers that we've been through, is about to change, about to evolve and become something else. And is that good? Is that bad? I don't know. It just is what it is, I suppose. I've heard some very different stories about InMusic as a company. I mean, the guy at the top, Jack O'Donnell, is a little bit mysterious. You don't see pictures of him about the place, although in the glimpses that I've had, he looks a lot like Uli Behringer, funny enough. And maybe they are similar in as much as they are renowned as being hard-nosed businessmen, as opposed to sort of sweet and cute and cuddly, like we sometimes see these things. And maybe that's part of it. Maybe really to be a successful entrepreneur in the music industry or in any industry, you have to be a bit of a git. Maybe that's just how it has to be. And maybe the Robert Moogs, the Tom Oberheims, the Dave Smiths, maybe that's not how you're able to be continually evolving and successful. Maybe that's just not possible to be a nice guy in that kind of industry. And maybe that's what's required in order to keep these sorts of products alive. You know, maybe we would not have Akai in the MPC. Maybe we would not have any of the Alesis drum kits. Maybe we would have none of the AM audio interfaces if it wasn't for InMusic picking up those brands and pumping money and ideas into it enough to turn it into some kind of product. I don't know. Otherwise, we may have just lost those things. Moog may just have gone down, and that would have been the end of it. So hopefully, what we're seeing is a new chapter in Moog, where perhaps it will be taken on board. I mean, I know that Jack has said, or at least in a conversation that Moog put out, that his first synthesizer was a Moog modular. I mean, flipping heck. I mean, how can that be your first synth? I mean, that's quite extraordinary. But hey, if that's the case, then perhaps Moog holds a very special place for Jack, and then that is going to evolve into something quite beautiful. We just don't know. We just don't know. But it won't be the same. I don't think it can quite be the same. But it may be different, and that might be okay. So I think I'm going around in circles with this. Only to say that, you know, InMusic has picked up brands and done things with them. They've also not done things with them. Some brands have been picked up by them that were just about to disappear. And he's kept them alive and produced new products with them. And, you know, there is a continuation here. There is an investment here. There is an opportunity for someone to try to make a successful product out of something. I mean, we lament the loss of things like the Alesis synthesizers, but it's still there as a brand. It's still there kicking out drum kits, you know. M Audio wasn't really ruined by InMusic. It was ruined by Avid, you know, beforehand. So, you know, that's not really one to put at their door either. Akai and the MPC seems to be regathering some momentum, even if they've pissed off Roger Lynn in the process, you know. Who knows? Interesting times. I mean, other things have been bought as well. We talk about Sequential being bought by Focusrite quite recently. That's another example, I think, of how perhaps in order to maintain something, in order to push forward, you need to be part of a larger group. Maybe that's that. Native Instruments also buying up other little bits of software companies as well as themselves being bought. There's a lot of this shenanigans going around. Should it matter to us? Probably not. I think perhaps it's a reality check that we need to consider our privilege and consider our biases when we talk with such, you know, lofty terms about a Moog synth as opposed to perhaps a Behringer synth. You know, it's important that we think about that a little bit, and that we don't just make massive assumptions about one being earthy and organic and built by a beautiful hippie commune of people just putting together stuff that it's just full of creativity and magic, and the other one being some kind of Chinese sweatshop. We have to understand and realize the reality of what supply chain is about and what making instruments is about and producing products that we all love and want and desire and wish to consume. Yeah, we make choices, and so do companies, and we shouldn't blind ourselves to the fact that the realities of producing an instrument are similar regardless of where you get your products from. See, that's why I've pulled my beard out with all the thinking. That's enough of all that. Let's have a look at other things. Well, first up is the Behringer Spice. So we've had all sorts of stuff from Behringer recently. They went dead quiet. They went quiet for about a year. It was bizarre. We had all of this massive cascade of mini synths and other stuff come along. It's like, whoa, it's such a party. It's all just coming, just like it's all rolling out, and we're all getting terribly excited, if you like, that sort of thing. And then it just completely disappeared, as I think they were hit with the supply chain and chip shortage issues to an extent where they just could not do anything. And it felt like the whole thing just got mothballed. But it's starting to restart, and stuff is starting to appear, although not much in the shops. I think the Pro 800 has now arrived, which is quite funny because people are moaning about it like not being fabulous. Well, at least fabulous in their view of it doesn't have snappy enough envelopes, or it doesn't have this, that and the other. It's only got a mono output. You know, all of the things that are authentically right because they are modelling an dead old synth, and then people moan about it not having all the modern features that they want, which is hilarious, right? You know, do we want authenticity? Do we not? Do we want something which feels a bit like it used to be and is now all modern and reworked, or is that also bad? I don't know. I just think we're never happy, I think, is the answer to that. But what do we have with Spice? So Spice, in the meantime, something that they've announced, but I don't know how close it is to actually arriving, because I think that the other one, the Edge, has literally only just about arrived somewhere, or is at least still on a boat somewhere. So what am I talking about? So Behringer has now 3 products which mirror the Mother 32, the DFAM, and the Subharmonian. And it's that last one, which is what Spice is. So we had the Crave, which is the Mother 32. We've had the Edge, which is the DFAM, which I think, as I say, is just about arrived. And now we have the Spice. And the Spice is, I mean, nobody knows what the Subharmonicon is, really. I mean, what is it about? Nobody knows. It's some crazy idea based on a really old form of synthesizer which deals with shifting patterns and tones with a little sequencer that revolves round. And in the Moog one, see, this is where we start getting to the real nuts and bolts. If we are able to put aside the aura and the bias we have about how Moog is beautiful, Behringer is not, if we can get rid of that side of things, then we can just look at them as products. And this is the point at which you can actually make some kind of comparison and opinion. It may well be that they sound the same, but they are not the same instrument. When you look at the Subharmonicon, the Moog one, and it's a beautiful and mysterious layout of components that invites you to engage in strange sounding sequences and movement and stuff. The Spice just looks like a bunch of knobs on a red background. So while it may have the same functionality, what Behringer is failing to do at the moment is to build an inviting interface, is to build an engaging space where it becomes something that you want to explore. Now that is there and you can get through it. It's just a little bit cookie cutter. It's just a little bit sort of samey. You're not inspired by the front end. And I think that's where they're missing out at the moment. That's where their lack of creativity comes into it. Because at the very least, with Moog, there's a sense of artistry and there's a sense of style, which, regardless of whether it sounds exactly the same or not, adds to an instrument. We'll see this with Roland later on, actually, funnily enough, if I remember to talk about it. So anyway, so we have this new thing coming from Behringer, and funny enough, Behringer have said there's going to be more of this style, because another thing which is slightly strange, where all the Moog stuff fits together in this beautiful sort of 3-tier sweeping console arrangement, the Behringers do not. They're not even Eurorack sized. These are slightly odd sized with, you know, nice wooden ends, I suppose, and so they sit there on your desktop cluttering up the place. And so, you know, there's again a lack of a forethought there, perhaps. It's like you could own the world of synthesizers, Behringer. You're just not very good at it, I would say. But hey, keep them coming. keep them coming. You never know. Some ugly mini synth is just around the corner. Woohoo! The other thing they've done, and this is quite beautiful, is they've done the Bode frequency shifter thingy. Now, this is something I've never really grasped what that was all about. But this is a frequency shifter that when you actually listen to it in action, it gives you all of the flavours of all of the synthesizer sounds that you're very familiar with. It sounds a bit like a filter, sounds a bit like a phaser, sounds a bit like a sync. All of those sorts of sounds are within it because it's shifting formants, it's shifting harmonics. It's really quite an interesting thing, and Behringer have taken the original Moog modular one and put it into their Eurorack form. Looks great. Sounds great, has all the same features in and out. I don't think they've changed anything about it. And so that's, cool, fair play. Fair play. Looks nice, probably sounds nice. It's good value relatively, I would imagine. And so, yeah, great. I'm still interested in seeing Behringer produce unique and innovative Eurorack modules. I wonder if that will happen. So is this Czochralski, because if it's CZ, is that like Czech, like the Czech Republic? So Czochralski Cells. Should I go with that? I mean, I could look it up, but hey, I'm here now filming, so I haven't got time. That sort of thing. Anyway, strange looking modular slabs of white stuff. Weird sort of patterns of things. I always find that very interesting when you move away from your very ordered sense of what audio gear should be. We're very much in a grid. We like grids, straight up and down, side to side, that kind of thing. That for some reason seems to appeal to us, or to any ordered mind, I suppose. So what we've got here is a big slab of synthesizer, which is just scattered with banana plug type plugs and joysticks and weirdness, and that's a beautiful thing. It stands out. I don't know how easy it is to navigate necessarily, but it just comes across as something completely extraordinary and maybe even otherworldly. Somewhere within it are 6 or 7 configurable drum voices, so it's kind of a percussion thing. It's deriving all sorts of noise and sound and oscillations and clangs and bangs out of a number of different semi-modular normalized systems within itself. And it is somehow based upon a Polish chemist's work with creating crystals. So there's something about ideas of growth, ideas of extraction, ideas of organic rendering of sound and signal and control voltage and that sort of stuff. But behind the scenes, behind the front panel in there somewhere are 3-0 oscillators, LFOs, waveform generators, shifting Watsits, matrix groupings of organic clusters of... I don't really know what I'm talking about. A lot of good stuff in there though, a lot of interesting things. I mean, if you get into the demos, it seems to be able to create extraordinarily modulated and animated sounds, and it's got those joysticks with which to smash everything into each other. So a very creative front end on a weird synth that I don't really understand, but hey, I thought that you would be interested in seeing it. I really like this guy, Amp Electronics. I think he's like well hippie, having a fabulous time creating extraordinary little instruments that make lights and noise and sound and stuff. And his latest thing is the optical orbital StarSong rotating sequencer. Now, we've seen rotating sequencers before. They keep cropping up. You see them at shows. People keep coming up and say, oh, I've got this great idea for a rotating thing, right? And it twangs stuff, or it's light and colours, and you put things on it, and it's a sequence. But they never materialise. They never seem to actually make it into any kind of reality. This one, you could buy it right now. It uses optical discs. I can't remember what those are. But it's some kind of disc that lights shine through, I think, and what you do is you stick bits of tape on it, a marker pen, and you can draw essentially modulation and notes on this disc, and it turns around and light gets shone through it, and it picks up stuff or something. Something along those lines. And you can get blank ones and do it yourself, or it can come ready. Well, no, it probably wouldn't come ready-made with any kind of sequence. It's going to want you to generate that sequence. And you can, via CV, spin it one way, spin it the other, or spin it backwards and forwards. And that's really interesting. I mean, I think the idea of having a disc of a sequence is brilliant anyway, because you can, there's something about being able to see it rotate round. You can see the next note that's coming. And I think that's brilliantly. I love that visual interaction. I love the way you can see that. The same as you see lights going along in a sequence, that's part of what makes analog sequencing or Eurax modular sequencing so interesting and exciting, is that you can see it go round and you can identify that, and your brain hooks into that and the notes going through far more so than you ever do with a piano roll or any other kind of DAW-based sequencing. This is far more interesting. And the fact that it's fragile and could break at any moment and looks like it's held together with bits of sticky tape and blue tack. I think it's all remarkable. So he makes remarkable stuff, strange shaped, triangular boxes. It's never going to fit in with any of their other gear. However, you can buy this other front end for it, which gives you these wonderfully mystical visuals, as well as CV, and I think also MIDI in and out potentially. CV at the very least, so it could run stuff. I think it's fantastic. I would quite like to get hold of one. It's a bit boutique, so it's a little bit pricey, and he's over there in America, so that probably seems unlikely, but well worth looking for and looking out for if you are into strange and experimental ways of producing interesting rhythmic sequences. Now, the D16 Group have been making software synths for a long time. I used to use the original Lush SH101 synth quite a bit. Long time ago. Years and years ago. Anyway, they've got a new one, the Lush 2, and it is probably one of the best SH101 emulations out there. At least the original was. I haven't had a chance to play with this, unfortunately, but I imagine that it absolutely does the job. I mean, it has the front end, so you can see what's going on, but it does double up on some of the sliders. It expands and gives you far more to play with. The original SH101, of course, is a monophonic synthesizer, but what we have here is 8 layers of polyphonic synthesizer. So they've taken the idea, again, this is going to remind me of talking about Roland later on. It's quite funny because I hadn't planned on talking about the Roland S1 at all, and suddenly it's becoming relevant all over the place. So I will. But anyway, in here, you've sort of taken that idea and they've given you different layers of it. So it's essentially become a polyphonic multi-timbral version of an SH101, which is quite interesting. So it has a built-in mixer, modulation matrix, a whole bunch of effects. Looks like quite an exciting little synth. Should be out later this month. Right, Korg's done a load of stuff. I heard when I spoke to Korg at Synth East back in March, they were saying, oh yeah, we've got a few things coming out this year. A few things. Nice big synthy type things, they said. I went, okay. What they seem to have done so far. So there may yet be more to come, and there probably will be. I think will become obvious. But they have stretched both the Wavestate and the Opsix into proper-sized synthesizers. We got a wind of this a couple of NAMs ago when they first were sort of teasing us this idea with the DX7 style synthesizer. The Opsix was sort of kept behind glass. This mock-up of a potential synthesizer was at NAM a few years ago, and then the Opsix arrived, and they're cute, small size but large keys, plastic, lightweight but pretty groovy synthesizers. Wavestate, Opsix, and the ModWave. So now they've sort of realised that idea of having a much larger synthesizer, which is called the SE version of both the Wavestate and the Opsix. The Opsix is interesting because it does look very DX-y. They have added the colour, used this horrible brown colour like the DX7 was originally in, which I think is perhaps a homage to the fact that it's 40 years since the introduction of the DX7. 40 years! That's amazing. Anyway, so what you have with the Wavestate is actually a Mark II, so they've improved it somehow. I can't see what the difference is. I mean, it looks exactly the same because they've released a Mark II of the normal version. Is there more stuff in it? There's probably like a load more sample library or polyphony or something. I don't know, put in the comments what the new things are, because I haven't really kept up with that. But the SE and the SE Platinum, sort of a white platinum type version, looks splendid, but everything is situated right in the middle, so as if they've taken the front panel and just slapped it in the middle of the synth and then stretched it on either side. So it's not a classic look, I would say. You know, you have all of that real estate on the top. You could have done something interesting with it, or perhaps, which would have been more helpful, is if you shifted it to one side or the other a little bit, you then leave room for sitting another synth on the top, which is a useful thing for us to be able to do, or a mixer, or your iPad, or your laptop, you know, that kind of thing. Whereas with it in the middle, you don't quite have enough room at either end. Ho hum. Squarp Instruments have a Hermod Plus. This is interesting. For me, at least. I've got a Hermod. They sent me one many decades ago when they first released it. And it's one of those bits of hardware which I spent a lot of time with, but never felt able to do a proper video on. For various reasons. Some of those reasons being I never really got to grips with it fully. I wasn't sure I was understanding everything, so I kind of, you know, once I lose confidence in a product, it makes it very hard for me to do a video on it, because I don't want to look like an idiot. That might be a surprise, because I generally come across as such, but I want to be able to speak confidently about something, and I found that hard with the Hermod, because there were elements of it that would just drive me nuts that I could not seem to wrap my head around. It had a workflow which for me just made everything harder. So there were elements of it. I mean, I included it in a couple of videos where I was doing different things, like I did polyphony through it, you know, MIDI into CV, and that was really interesting, and that's one aspect that it could do. But also it was kind of crazy and chaotic, and it didn't really work as I expected it to, but it was interesting. But trying to write actual sequences on it, I found that just tremendously difficult. Tremendously difficult. So it's very interesting that several years later they've decided to give it another go, and this looks much better. I mean, it's the same deal. It's 8 tracks, I think, although it's now 16 tracks. You can do 8 CV and 8 MIDI together, or 16 tracks of MIDI. But on the front panel, you've still got 8 lots of CV and gate out the front, if you've got similar sort of inputs. But you've now got this 4x4 matrix of buttons on the front, and I think that's going to revolutionize the way that you can program sequences in, and also go into the potential things like clip launching and performance controls and effects stuff, a bit like you would on a Novation circuit, I imagine. And so that has a lot of potential in it, because it was all of the button combinations and trying to be in the right mode to get to the right thing, to the right is what drove me absolutely crazy. And I wonder how well they've dealt with that. The screen looks beautiful. It looks like they're getting a lot of visual feedback as to what's going on, so maybe that will help, because the zooming in on a piano roll, zooming out, I mean, I could go into a lot of detail on how much pain the original mod was giving me. So interesting. Very much like to have a go just to see how that runs, because I think the concept behind it, what they were trying to do, was brilliant and very competent, and I think they've done better with their that other thing that they did afterwards. I think they developed into that nicely. So if they've come back to this and really nailed the interface, then it could be an absolute winner, because it has a lot of stuff in it. I mean, it also generates modulation, it generates, you know, waveforms and envelopes and all sorts of other bits and pieces. It's a multifunctional module that could definitely earn its place in your rack. But yet to see how well it actually functions in reality, because that's what it comes to. Because the Hermod itself always came across as a brilliant idea, always looked good in videos. It was just an absolute pig to use. I am sorry. You know, if it was easier, I would have made a proper review video of it. But there's just sometimes something is too difficult, and it's best left to other people to try to explain. Another bunch of products that I struggle with is Sonicware. I've reviewed a few of the Sonicware boxes, the live-uns, for Sound on Sound magazine, and they are hard work. For me, maybe there's just something about them that doesn't quite resonate with the workflow that I'm used to doing or I prefer to use. But there's a lot of great stuff in them, but there's also a lot of hard stuff in them, I find, and it can be tricky really to find the right balance when you're describing it, because you can get to a point where you just go, I just can't be bothered. I can't be bothered with this. This is too hard work. And then so you ignore actually all the great stuff that's in there. But it is a style of machine, a style of box that has a fierce following. And so, something that may just not resonate with me can certainly be awesome for other people. And I know a lot of people who really rate the Sonicware stuff. And so they have a new thing out, but apparently it's an old thing. But I don't know. I don't notice these sorts of things. But this is called the ELZ1 Play, and apparently it's highly acclaimed and much sought after. But this is a little synthesizer, a little sort of backpack battery power synthesizer, as all of their stuff tends to be, and it contains like 14 synthesizer engines. A massive load of synthesizer stuff within a small box with a clacky keyboard and a few knobs. And as I say, it's not my sort of thing. But the new version, what's it got? Well, it has a sample looper built in, so a little bit like the sample track, which is a fun, handheld box from Sonicware. It has a drum machine built in and is also compatible with sample track kits. Apparently, clickety clackety keyboard has velocity. I mean, that's extraordinary in by itself, because those keyboards are awful. But apparently these ones much better with velocity and stuff, so that's a really great thing to see. So this is going to be a small run of these, I believe, and they're going to be available exclusively on their own website. I mean, it looks like a funky little box, don't get me wrong, and it has a fabulous collection of synthesizer engines within it, and built-in speakers, and an SD card, and MIDI, and sync, and all those sorts of bits and pieces. So, don't take my word for it. Go and check it out yourself, because it's certainly a fabulously interesting thing, and maybe you'll find that it really does float your boat. Olivella Arts Modular has a time machine, really interesting delay box, 8 sliders on it for 8 taps, I suppose, delay times that you can set individually to give you some really creative ideas and how your delay regenerates and how it finds itself further down the line. It's like this completely tactile approach to delays. With delays, you're usually dealing with feedback and time. So feedback, how often it keeps on going, and time, how yawning the differences are between those delays. And yet this allows you to play with those individual taps. It's more like a tape delay, I suppose, in that you've kind of got 8 heads which you're then positioning as to where you want those to repeat. Would that be a good analogy? I really don't know. But hey, it looks like a fun thing. I like the idea of putting things apart to give you more places to play within something which you normally would completely ignore, and that might well give you a really interesting way to design rhythms and sounds and responses to what you're doing. The Time Machine is on Kickstarter, although they've already met their goal. I mean, they weren't asking for a whole lot, to be fair. It's like, if 5 people buy one, it was going to be made. So it's great to see that was a success and that it's going to be made, but I think it's still up there so that you could get in on some very attractive early pricing, which might be nice. But Olivella Arts Modular are a new little fledgling company that are trying to put a few things together, and they've done some really interesting stuff so far, so hopefully this will carry them forward. Synth have pulled a remarkable little synth out of the bag. A little bit unexpected in its colour, unexpected certainly in what it looks like, but this is called Bullfrog, and it's collaboration with Richie Horton. And the idea behind this is to put together a very clear modular system for kind of for everybody, but there is an educational bent towards it. The collaboration, I think, is really there to try to pull together the resources to get across exactly how synthesis works in this little environment. It's a little bit like with the EDU kits, with the DIY stuff that we did with Erica Synths. It's this intention to try to bring people behind the curtain and to look really into what synthesis is all about, and to try to get that out to a wider range of people. Obviously, cost is inevitably a barrier in these sorts of things, but also so can the mind craziness of what on earth is modular all about, because it's all weird and it's strange and it's not very traditionally synthy. You have all this other logic stuff going on, and probability and weird named modules and stuff. Whereas what the Bullfrog does is boils this down to a simple synthesizer voice that we all understand, and then presents it in a single package but with a modular front end. And I think that's a really nice way to get into modular. I mean, I've often talked about getting into things like the Mother 32 and things like that as a step towards doing modular. I think this does this in a clearer, better way. Perhaps mainly because all of the patch points are actually on the different bits themselves. So the Mother 32, its biggest flaw was having the patch bay over on one side, which is very tidy, but broke the connection between the thing you were moving and the thing you were patching. This doesn't do that. This keeps it all together. So you've got oscillator, you've got filter, I think, you've got an envelope and a VCA. All the normal things. What have you got? Yeah, that's right. I knew what I was talking about. And they're beautifully coloured and beautifully laid out, very, very clear. But perhaps a thing that you really should take note of is the card slot. Now, this is something we saw on the Pico system that they did a few years ago, which is kind of the card system taken from the Buchla idea, the music easel, where you could add extra functionality by slotting a card in. On the Pico system, it was a way of actually saving presets, because you could make connections on that board that would then plug in and make the connections on the synth. How that worked, I have no idea how that worked, but apparently that's what it does, and this is a similar idea. So you've got a bunch of cards, you can have new things on it like a sequencer or effects, I think, or you can patch together stuff on that which represents the patching here on the front end, so that it can become a source of presets. So it's going to come with a couple, and you can plug those straight in and you'll get some fantastic sound straight out, which is just brilliant. I mean, it's a very creative and interesting way to engage with a synthesis, to engage with a way of keeping hold of what it is that you've done in order to go back to it again, because inevitably with modular it all just disappears the next time you patch it together. So it's a way of being able to still use it as in an analog sense without it becoming some kind of digitally controlled system, but still have some kind of recall, which is great. So a fabulous looking synth. It could be awesome. It's probably not going to be as cheap as we'd love it to be in order to be something for entry level, but it's a great thing. I love what Erica Synths are doing. They've always got this intention of doing interesting things, new things, helpful things. You know, they're not content to just keep churning out yet another module or something. I really respect the way that they work on interesting ideas and have such a great input into our community. There is something about circles in Eurorack. I've seen it a few times now, and it's always dramatic. I mean, from the simple circles of the Euclidean rhythms, what's it, to the interesting chordal things of the clang, the clank, the clonk, I can't remember what that was called. And we recently saw an interesting sequencer, which we talked about at Superbooth, I think, with a circle porthole in the front. It's a lovely thing, and perhaps people are creating circular OLED screens. I don't know, maybe that's common. But we have another one here. This is called the Magerit Kairos Master Controller. And Kairos, of course, is the Greek god of the opportune moment, I think. Which is a great, fabulously modular concept. And I'm going to fight with the cockerel as we do this one. So it's essentially a multi-functional thing. It can do all sorts of things. It can be a source of modulation. It can be a MIDI to CV converter. It can generate sequences and do all number of things. So master controller generates all sorts of stuff. So it's a bit more like a Disting or perhaps like a PAMS. But of course what it has going for it is this fabulous screen with this fabulous display telling you all sorts of different things that are going on. I mean, the circles themselves for Euclidean rhythms are of course an absolute given. You have to have that going on. But you could get all sorts of stuff going on in here. You've only got 2 encoders and a button, so I wonder how easy all of the navigation is going to be, which is of course the thing that it all comes down to with these sorts of modules. But it looks splendid. I don't often cover plugins, as such. I mean, Arturia's just released a new version of their FX collection, which is always cool. They do good stuff. But this one in particular, I just really like the Dawsome stuff. He makes great synths, and this is a great complement to that in a crazy, instant, ambient, granular, shimmering, reverbing plugin. It's called Love. And that's what it is. I mean, that's all you need. Evidently. So it can take your audio and it can go like rain patterns upon it, pulling out granularities, finding itself within those intricate moments of metaphysical ponderance, and pull those apart and then splatter those in a shimmering sparkle of constellational awesomeness. It's one of those sort of plugins. You slap it on, everything sounds spacey and fantastic. In fact, I've just had a really good idea I want to use that for. So basically it's great for creating textures, it's great for adding space and interest and movement to otherwise really dull and boring sounds. It's great. It's great. Go and check it out. Go and check out all their stuff. The Abyss, the Novan thing, the Chop Suey stuff, the Coach, all of it. It's really creative in terms of plugins, and if I did more on software, which I really should, I would absolutely be reviewing those bits and pieces. I wonder if I can squeeze those into my schedule somewhere. Meanwhile, a nervous squirrel has given us Conway's Game of Life. This is a wonderful module that is absolutely going to be of no use to me whatsoever. And that's fine. We don't all have to be playing with the same stuff, but there must be people out there that are going to find this absolutely fascinating. I mean, I am fascinated. It's just I can't think what I would do with it. No, I've got no clue. But what it is, it's a grid, 8x8 grid of patch points, and you go, good lord, what is that going to be about? Now, what it uses is an algorithm called Conway's Game of Life, and it's a very simple set of instructions which creates patterns. Now, the sense that it kind of treats things like a cellular organism. And in each of these cells, which is a patch point, you could say, either lives or dies depending on what's around it, depending on its community, which is, it's a beautiful idea, man. So if it's got enough things next to it, it will multiply or get bigger, or it will stay there. If it has nothing next to it, it will die and fall away. If it has a certain number next to it, it will create another one. And to the left or to the right or over here or between the two, and in so setting it up and letting it go, it creates these patterns that move across this space in completely unpredictable directions. I mean, it could be predictable, who knows it? I just can't predict it myself. Every time I make it happen, because you can go onto a website and you can play with this thing and see all these patterns going about the place. It's quite fascinating. Some of them get into loops where it just continues in this thing because of the rules that are set up just create these sort of closed loops that it gets into. Other times it just completely dissipates and disappears, and other ones it just keeps on moving around the place. Now, all of that is fascinating, and it will be represented on the wonderful little display on the front, and you'll see these blips all going about showing you which of the patch points are active. But of what possible use it is within your Eurorack, I have no clue. I mean, I guess it's randomly-ish or patternally making connections between things. But how? How and what would you have them connected to? What is it that you would want randomly occasionally connected to something? I don't know. I'm not experimental enough. I'm not deep enough into the ideas of weird exploratory ways that signals create and generate and come together or not. I'm very much like, I'm going to write a bass line, I'm going to stick in a kick drum. Blah. That's the depth of my experimentation, really. So, but fascinating. I love it. I would love to know how people use it. That would be really interesting to me. Faded Instruments were a little modular company that came along recently that kind of splatted out a whole bunch of 1U passive little modules for touchy things, attenuation, little connections, switches, bits and pieces, and all beautifully rendered in nice colours, and they looked exciting, and I thought, wow, this is fabulous stuff. Well, now they've pushed this into the 3U arena, to make bigger versions of some of the things that they do. So within this little range of 3U, we've got the Jangler. Now, they had a 1U version of this, and it's essentially a touch plate. Very colourful, beautifully laid out little touch plate that's got a few connections on it. You connect in 3 in and 3 out, I think. Something like that, and then you get your fingers on the front panel, and it uses the conductance of your fingers to make connections, to increase intensity or level or attenuate, to connect, to mix, to sum, to just do stuff, to mess around with your signals. Signal coming in, stick your fingers in, oh, that's going to mess it about, or make random connections to each other, and then it comes out the other side. It's the Jangler. It's the Jangler for jumbling things about all over the place. The other one is the Flip, Twist, Push, Touch, which is like taking 4 of their 1U little panels and slapping it together in a single 3U module. So you've got like a push button which makes a switch from a switch to a switch thing. I think you've got a twist for attenuation. You've got a flip which changes channels, or was that the switch thing? And then the switch thing which does the and you've also got a little bit of the Jangler in there too, with a little bit of touch plate action at the bottom. So it's a good multi-function little utility module that's fun and colourful and can do all sorts of nice things for you. Slightly more focused one is the MIDI Doodler. Now, this is a MIDI controller, so it's 8 knobs, although you can get a couple of banks, I think 4 banks, and you can generate controller numbers with it, and it has a USB out that you plug into your DAW, and so from your Eurorack you can then do a little bit of MIDI control over your computer. It's a nice idea. I wish it actually had a MIDI output, just a mini jack MIDI output, so you could route it in some of the MIDI compatible modules that you do have in your Eurorack. I think that would be an additional use, perhaps. But as it is, MIDI control over your DAW while you're working on your thing. And if you're the sort of person who has a laptop that's running with your Eurorack, that could be very, very interesting. Expert Sleepers have another new envelope called Aloysius. Aloysius? I think this is a trapezoid one. Now, they're the weirdo envelopes. I mean, I've got one of their envelopes. It's really very good. Where is it? I can't point at it. It's over there somewhere. And it's one of the nicest envelopes I've come across, and I mean to do a video on it, simply because it just works. I mean, it sounds like a crazy thing to say, but to say it just works is, in envelope speak, quite remarkable, because usually you get an envelope and you spend a lot of time fiddling with it, going, I don't even know if it's doing what is it doing what I thought it was? I don't know. If you have a nice long envelope, then you can understand that. When it comes down to short sequencer type envelopes, it all just gets a bit muddy and mully, and trying to get a decent to envelop a sound correctly, I find that quite a struggle. And I usually end up leaving envelopes out of the game altogether, and just go with a filter close and use that a little bit more, and just let the sound ring behind it. So that Expert Sleepers Amelia, that envelope, I've actually started using that quite a lot, particularly on sequencers, because it works so well. So this I've got high hopes for. Now, a trapezoid one, it just means that, so it's like a pyramid. It's a pyramid shape with a flat top. And what's different about it is that rather than having a sustain level, so in a normal envelope you've got attack time, decay time, then sustain level, which stays there for as long as either you're holding a note or you're gating it for, and then you've got release time. With a trapezoid envelope, you've got attack time, but then you've got hold time, and then you've got decay time, and then you've got wait, which is weird, which is waiting until the next time it happens, assuming it's on some kind of triggerable, loopable thing. I don't know. Anyway, so you get this shape. So it doesn't have a level gauge to it necessarily, although it might well do. Does it have a level? No, I don't think it does. So it's an envelope that's all in. So it's going in on this shape. So it's great for quick up and downs. It's good for LFOs, because you've got this thing that happens and you've got this wait time, you've got this thing that happens. So it can loop and do that sort of thing. And it's the sort of envelope that you would find on the EMS Synthy or VCS3. Erica Synths have done it on their Synths Tricks synthesizer, and they've also done it as a module as well. So interesting. It's just another flavour, another way of shaping sound that perhaps gives a different idea, particularly because you can trigger it and then that wait time will keep that shape rather than it instantly disappearing or just doing its thing like you do on a normal envelope. It will actually, you can dial in how long, how wide you want that gate to be, I suppose. So it's a way of also gating triggering signals. So yeah, interesting. Expert Sleepers are constantly working on little interesting takes on classic analog modules. It's good stuff. Yeah, the Roland S1. Yeah, I meant to talk about this before, but it came out sort of just before Superbooth, I think it was, or during it, and so because they weren't there, it didn't end up being part of my Superbooth coverage, so it kind of got lost by the wayside. But yes, the S1. Interesting. Sound on Sound sent this to me for a review, so I'm not going to go into masses of detail. You can read about it in a couple of months when it comes out in print. But essentially, the idea behind the S1 is it's part of their IRA compact series. We've had the T8, the J something, and the voice tweaker thing, and they're great. They're great, battery-powered, rechargeable, little boxes, colourful, knobs on the top, a little bit fiddly, but they make great sounds. They're all based on the ACB technology, which is what you've originally found in the System 8 and the System 1, which then became their plugins that you get off Roland Cloud. So it's like hardware that became, well, software that ran hardware that became software that's now back into hardware again. It's also what you find in their boutique range of stuff. So what I'm saying is, sounds great. That ACB technology that Roland did was good. It was solid. It sounds like an analog synthesizer. It captures stuff brilliantly. The behavior seems to work about right. It's great. You're not going to get a better sounding emulation than Roland's own emulation of its own stuff. And this is not the Zencore stuff, which I've always seen as slightly different. It has a different vibe going on. The ACB seems to be somehow rawer and more in tune with the nature of the synthesizer that it's been covering. So in here is an SH101. Now, the one thing that I will say is that this is not an SH101. It isn't. There's no way. There's no way. Because playing on an SH101 is playing on an instrument. It has a form, and that form is represented and presented to you in sliders and the odd switch. You look at that interface and you go, oh yeah, I know what's going on, and I can adjust things, and I can see it, and I can hear it, and it becomes, you become involved in the creation of sound through that interface. This interface is not that. It just isn't. So I don't quite know why they keep harping on about the SH101 as it being, this is it reborn. No, it isn't at all. It has the sound engine, but it's also polyphonic and it has effects. So again, it's not like the SH101. So slightly weird, the marketing that's really pushing the idea that this is exactly like that classic synth that you've always wanted it's just slightly strange. So this is an emulated plug-in fake version of an SH101 in a non-SH101 box, which doesn't sound like an SH101 when you turn on the effects and start playing chords. So it's a tenuous link at best. But hey, what it is as a synthesizer by itself in a little box, if you can get over the fiddliness of the keys, the fact you can't read any of the writing on it, then it's an awesome little synthesizer. The Western Precision Audio Harmoniser. H1 Analog Harmoniser. Interesting. Really interesting, really nice idea. So this is a dual oscillator, but it's one that takes in the pitch from another oscillator and creates instant harmonies around it. I mean, it's quite brilliant, really. Now, I think you can use it just as an oscillator if you want, but this functionality where it can follow the tune of something else, I think that makes it pretty unique. I can't think of another way of doing. I mean, I'm sure pitch tracking and things like that exists within Eurorack and Module already. It must do. I'm sure everything exists already. But I hadn't come across anything like this before myself, and it's just a nice idea. I mean, I assumed what it was is that you plugged various oscillators into it and it would quantize it, a bit like the harmonizer, something like that from Instruo. But no, this is oscillators that are following and generating tunes along with it. And it sounds quite interesting. I mean, it can also be other things. I mean, it's essentially quantizing, so you can use it as a quantizer, or a drone synth, you can use it as a frequency doubler, or even a tuner, because it's all very digitally controlled in there in order to make this stuff happen really well. But I think that's a really clever idea. I wonder if I'll ever get a chance to try one of those out. Olivella modular, haven't come across these people before, but the stunning Buchler-esque look of the Gravedad, strange name, Gravedad oscillator, I think looks extraordinary. They talk about it being a through 0FM analog gravitational VCO. I haven't quite gotten to the bottom of exactly what that's about, but it has a couple of knobs on it. One of them is called mass and the other one is called force. And those are probably key. Those are probably key gravitational terms, I imagine, that have something to do with how the waveforms are being generated. So the mass is kind of an independent sub-oscillator or subharmonic generator, and it can either track with the VCO or it can self-oscillate, because it's an oscillator, and become its own thing, which kind of turns it into a complex oscillator. You've now got these two oscillations going on that are independent that you can then crash into each other. Another interesting feature is it has a 5-octave slider which can be CV controlled, so you could pump a sequence in which leaps the octaves around, independently of changing its pitch, which is interesting. Not seen that before. So I'm not entirely sure that I'm explaining that very well, or even if I have any idea really what it does, but I thought it looked very interesting, and so I'm sharing it with you. The 2020 semi-modular insane beat machine was something that was, I think, being kickstarted in something like 2017, and the idea was that it was going to be put to the future of 2020, and it was going to be awesome, but it never actually materialized until now. So here we are in 2023, 3 years after the future in which the beat machine should have emerged. So it's kind of been teleported from the past into the future and back again. Does it matter? No, probably not. But what is it? It's this massive page of extraordinary things. It's full of sequencing, it's full of instruments, modulations, individual modules, logic, effects, mixing, probability, randomization, all interconnected through this semi-modular and rewirable interface that's going to look extraordinary on a very high definition screen. Sadly, it's Mac OS only, which is, what can you do? Bit of a thing. So I'm never going to get a chance to play on it, but it does look extraordinary. I mean, it's one of those things that looks like it comes out of Max DSP or comes out of Ableton Live some way. And it's just evolved into this enormous place to play. I mean, it looks extraordinary. I'm so pleased they were able to actually keep it going, and it's now becoming a reality. That's great. That's perseverance in development, that is, and that's a really good thing to see. But, I mean, heck, looks amazing, sounds extraordinary. If you're a Mackie type person, you maybe should go and check it out. BeepBoop Electronics always doing crazy things with tape. Lots of weird, wonderfully weird tape-based stuff coming out of that place in Bristol. But this one is a tiny little 2HP module, sits in your Eurorack, and you attach to it this cable, wand I think he's calling it, that on the end is essentially the head from a cassette player that's been ripped out of some old piece of junk somewhere and has been taped on the end, and with that you scrub it along strips of tape. So you get some cassette tape from somewhere, steal it from your dad's collection probably, and tape it out on your desk and then go and that kind of thing along the tape head on the tape to make scratchy interesting sampleable kind of drop-ins of stuff. Are you with me? The little module is like an amplifier which will take that and then stick it through a Eurorack, so you can stick it through delay modules and ambient effects, or you stick it into a mimeophone, or sample it in some way to loop it and change it back, and it will work on 1/4" tape, an 1/8" tape or something, I think. And just get in there, man. It's the ultimate. I mean, all this BeepBoop stuff is the ultimate in hands-on, sort of hackable, moddable, DIY, interesting, getting experimental with sound type stuff. Absolutely fabulous. Totally love it. I think it's brilliant. I'm going to have to give that a go. I mean, tape is something which I'm just sort of, I'm flirting with it. It's over there and I'm over here. I'm not quite fully engaged with it. I have played with tape, but the idea of making loops and doing other things with tape is something which I can see is in my not too far off future. I just don't have the time for it at the moment. But this is a great way of perhaps getting into that. And finally, Synth East. Synth East 2 has been worked out. We're working it out. We are working it out. Synth East 2 is going to happen. It's going to happen next year. Now, I've got a date for you. It is the 23rd and 24th of February 2024. February is slightly chilly, perhaps. Maybe it would have been nicer to go nearer the spring, but it's just trying to find that balance between other things that are going on, like Super Booth, and there's NAMM before it, perhaps, and there's other events and bits and pieces. So we're just trying to find our way, and it seemed that like a chilly couple of days in February is going to be the best place for it. So it's going to be a similar deal to last year, or the one just gone in March. It's going to be at the Norwich Art Centre again. We're going to kind of keep a similar format. We do have pretensions, aspirations, one or the other, of going bigger next year, but the venue we want to put it into is currently under refurbishment, so it's not going to be available to us. So we figure we're going to consolidate what we did with our first one, which was such a flipping success, that we're going to try and do that again and just shave off a couple of the edges, make it slightly better in some ways, reorganize it a little bit, have a new bunch of performers, of course, some fantastic performances in the evening, and also we're bringing in this sort of Friday evening idea the night before. So we're still working out exactly what that is, but it's going to be something a bit different. It might be a talk, it might be a demonstration, it might be a panel, some kind of interactive thing. So the Saturday will still be the big day with the manufacturers in the hall itself, with the evening given over to live performance and proper artists doing the proper thing. Steve is definitely up for doing it again, so that's fantastic. And I just need to go about finding some more people for the Steve Davis All-Star Patch Off. So if you are staggeringly famous and would like to do a sort of a 15-minute jam along modular battle for free sometime in February next year, then do get in touch. And I'll consider you, depending on how famous you are. Really, it'll be fun. We had a great time in the one just gone, and I don't see any reason why we can't have a fabulous time next year. So that'll be great. And also, moving forward, I don't know anybody else, but I hope to be at Bristronica in September and also at Synthfest in October. So we have lots of interesting things to come along before we get there, just to warm us up. But, once you pass Christmas and the New Year and you're thinking, what on earth am I going to do? Then you'll be able to come along on the 23rd and 24th of February to Synth East in Norwich 2024. So there we go, that's enough. I think that's plenty in there. I would actually like to apologise for the lack of videos this month. I simply haven't had the time. I've had to have my head down into doing the work that pays the bills, because I've got lots of bills to pay and holidays and stuff, and trying to just knuckle down and get some proper work done. That has been my focus and my intent for this last month or so gone by, but hopefully that's opening up again now. There's a lot of stuff I'm well behind on in terms of making videos for people, and I'd very much like to get stuck into that as we hit the summer at full flight. So hopefully there's going to be interesting videos to come, including this is the SSL Big 6 mixer. Now, I've been intimidated by this for about a month. It's sat here intimidating me, but I think I've gotten over it. I think I've got through it now. I think my head is now ready to be able to explore it and to offer an opinion on something that's really out of my league. So that's exciting. So I've got that to deal with. I've got a video coming up on 1U because of my 1U Molten motion meter. This fella here. I'd like to do a video all about what 1U's are about, how it's exciting, what's different about it, how to understand, how you to talk about it, that kind of thing. So I've got that coming up. I want to take this case out and take it outside into the countryside and run it on batteries. I've talked about that a lot. Probably a couple of years ago I started talking about that, but I'm going to try to do it this summer. And this is the perfect case for that, I believe, because it fits into my carry case. And it's probably simpler than taking my clamshell dual Arturia rack brutes, and it's also lighter. So all of those things are really heading towards me getting on my motorbike, Eurorack on the back and a battery, and off we go. So I've got that going on. I've got endless modules to do videos on, all of which are terribly exciting, and I've got lots of DIY as well, and there's no end to the stuff that I could be doing. I just need to be getting on with it. So lots more goodies to come. I'd also like to take this opportunity to thank all of my patrons who are out there. You are awesome that you've supported me all these years. Even when I'm not producing videos, you still stick with me and support me, and that's just brilliant. If you'd like to be a patron, it's really turning into it's starting to evolve, which is really nice. I mean, it's lovely just having a bunch of people who support you, but now we're starting to interact more than we have before. We've got a server on Discord where we chat and talk about things, and that's been lovely. I've loved the fact that it's starting to open up a little bit, and that's great. And you can come and join us for as little as £1 a month, I think. You can just come and be supportive and be part of that community. We should, of course, get together this Sunday for a live stream. It's the 2nd, I believe, of July. So let's do that. 8 o'clock here. We'll talk about stuff, do all the usual kind of jimmy jamming about. Maybe I can make some music. We'll see. Otherwise, we'll talk about our thoughts on this month's monthly and technology and other bits and pieces, and just have a beer and a nice time. So that's this Sunday, 8 o'clock. That'll be great. Be good to see you there in the chat. Otherwise, I'm pretty sure that'll have to do us. That'll have to do us for now. I hope that's been useful. And in the meantime, go and make some tunes.